The steel door slammed shut with a deafening echo, reverberating throughout the high-security prison. Inmate William Wild Bill Matthews, known as America's most feared inmate, is supposed to be behind those bars, locked away for life. His reputation precedes him, a ruthless gang leader, responsible for a series of brutal murders, drug trafficking, and countless violent escapes. He was feared by prisoners, guards, and even the most hardened criminals. For years, he reigned with absolute power within the prison's walls. But now, in the dead of night, he's gone. One of the guards, Greg Holt, stumbles into the control room, sweating and gasping for air. His eyes are wide with disbelief, struggling to comprehend the scene unfolding before him. The footage from the surveillance cameras shows nothing. The cell is empty. Not a single sign of disturbance. No broken bars, no signs of forced entry. The locked door is still intact, but inside, nothing. The entire prison is thrown into chaos. Within minutes, word spreads like wildfire through the facility. Wild Bill has vanished, a man who spent decades under lock and key, surrounded by the most advanced security measures, had somehow slipped through the cracks. No one knows how, no one knows why, but one thing is certain: this is not a simple escape. Welcome to Crime's Court, where the most chilling and mysterious true crime stories unfold. We bring you the most suspenseful and jaw-dropping tales that will keep you at the edge of your seat. Be sure to subscribe, so you never miss a twist and turn that will leave you questioning everything you know about justice. Now, settle in and listen closely as we unravel the twisted story of the vanishing of William Wild Bill Matthews. The prison system had its legends, names that whispered to the hallways, names that terrified both inmates and guards. Wild Bill Matthews was one such name, a man whose name alone would cause grown men to shudder. Known for his brutal tactics, his gang, the Blood Shadows, ruled the streets of several cities, spreading violence, drugs, and fear. He was untouchable, and the authorities couldn't break his hold on the underworld. He was arrested in his prime, a ruthless killer whose reputation for evading capture was legendary. For years, no one knew how he managed to pull off so many daring escapes. He was imprisoned in the highest security prison, with a history of solitary confinement and a personal army of prison loyalists. Everyone believed the last place he'd escaped from was a facility where he was currently held, the Alcatraz of the Midwest. The guards feared him. The inmates respected him, and for years, the FBI kept a watchful eye, believing he was nothing more than an empty shell of a man, growing older and weaker in his confinement. But those who knew him best, the ones who survived to tell the tale, said there was always something unnerving about Matthews. He wasn't just a criminal, he was a mastermind, and he had a way of making people disappear. Within hours of his disappearance, the prison is under lockdown. SWAT teams, the FBI, and local law enforcement swarm the facility, questioning everyone from the guards to the inmates. But as investigators sift through the chaos, something begins to feel off. The security footage is scrubbed. The logs are incomplete. Some guards seem too rattled. Their story's not adding up. Detective Jessica Hayes, a seasoned investigator known for solving high-profile cases, is called in. She stood face-to-face with criminals who have left scars on the world, but nothing prepares her for the case she's about to dive into. She's standing in the control room, trying to make sense of the bizarre circumstances. The footage shows nothing unusual, but the missing inmate isn't the only thing raising alarms. The night shift guard, Greg Holt, is acting strangely. His hands shake as he points at the security footage. "I swear, detective," he stammered. "I saw him in his cell. I locked the door myself. There's no way he could have gotten out." But Hayes can see the sweat on his forehead, the panic in his eyes. She doesn't trust him. Could Hope be involved? Or was there something more sinister at play? Before she can investigate further, she receives a call from a source inside the prison. The voice on the other end is muffled, and the words are barely audible. Detective Hayes, Bill didn't escape. He was held. The call cuts off abruptly, and the mystery deepens. Was someone on the inside helping Wild Bill? Who could have orchestrated such a flawless escape, and why? The days following Wild Bill's disappearance are a blur of interviews, interrogations, and investigations. Every prisoner who had been in contact with Matthews is questioned, but no one talks. Fear grips the facility. No one wants to be associated with him, but no one wants to cross him either. Then a breakthrough. A former inmate named Danny Red Harris, who had once been in the Blood Shadows, comes forward with a disturbing story. He was part of Matthews' crew before he was imprisoned years ago. Now out on parole, Red claims to have information about the escape. Red is reluctant to speak at first, but Hayes' persistence finally breaks him. He tells her about a secret network inside the prison, a group of inmates and guards working together, a group with a singular goal: to free Wild Bill Matthews. According to Red, Wild Bill's escape was an accident. It was planned for years, and the prison had been infiltrated long before that fateful night. Red speaks in hushed tones, his eyes darting around, ensuring no one hears. They've been planning it for months. Bill didn't just vanish. He was set free, Red says, his voice shaking. You need to follow the money. That's how they did it. It's always about the money. Before Hayes can get more details, Red disappears. Just like Wild Bill. No one knows where he's gone, and no one will speak of him again. The case goes cold. Weeks pass, and the investigation stalls. Hayes begins to dig deeper into the prison's financial records. She uncovers a web of bribery, corruption, and a disturbing pattern of payments made to certain officers. Some of those officers are still on duty, while others have been mysteriously transferred to other facilities in the months leading up to Matthew's disappearance. The pieces of the puzzle are slowly starting to come together. A connection between certain prison staff members and known associates of Wild Bill's gang, the Blood Shadows, becomes evident. But the deeper Hayes digs, the more she realizes that Wild Bill's disappearance wasn't just an inside job. It's part of something far more sinister. Then, Hayes receives a phone call from a high-ranking official within the prison system. Someone she had trusted. "You're getting too close, detective," the voice warns. "You don't know what you're messing with. Let it go." Before Hayes can respond, the line goes dead. A wave of fear crashes over her. Is she being watched? Is there someone inside the government trying to shut her down? Or is Wild Bill still out there, pulling strings from the shadows, orchestrating his next move? As the case begins to lose momentum, Detective Hayes stumbles upon a lead that changes everything. An anonymous tip, a voice, shaky and desperate, tells her about a remote location deep in the woods where Wild Bill was last seen. Hayes arranges a covert operation with the FBI, planning to raid the location at dawn. But when they arrive, they find the place abandoned, except for a single chilling clue: a bloodstained jacket. The jacket bears the insignia of the Blood Shadows. What does this mean? Was Wild Bill at this location? Was he injured, or was someone else left behind? As Hayes picks up the jacket, a voice behind her whispers, "You're too late, detective." The voice belongs to none other than Wild Bill Matthews. The cold winds of the evening swept through the darkened alleyways of the prison complex, and Detective Jessica Hayes stood in front of the abandoned location, her breath visible in the biting chill. The air was thick with tension. She looked down at the blood-stained jacket in her hands. The insignia of the Blood Shadows gang burned into the fabric. Wild Bill Matthews' crew. This was no mere coincidence. As she lifted her head, her sharp eyes scanned the area. Her pulse quickened, the hairs on the back of her neck standing on end. She could feel it now. Someone was watching her. The quiet hum of the surrounding woods was the only sound, save for the distant crackling of underbrush, disturbed by footsteps too light to belong to her FBI team. "Detective Hayes," a voice whispered from behind. It was low, gravelly, but unmistakable. She froze. A rush of adrenaline surged through her body. "You're too late, detective," the voice repeated, this time louder. "You thought you could find me, but you're only digging your own grave." Jessica's heart skipped a beat. It couldn't be. She turned slowly, her hand instinctively reaching for her gun as she faced a man she'd been hunting for months. There, standing in the shadows of a nearby building, was Wild Bill Matthews, his eyes gleaming with the dangerous knowledge of someone who had outsmarted the system for years. He stepped forward, his frame large and menacing, cloaked in a dark jacket. His face remained hidden in the shadows, but the signature sneer, the same one that had terrified the world, was unmistakable. He was smiling, amused by the look of disbelief on her face. "You've come all this way, detective," Wild Bill said softly, his voice like venom. "But you're only a pawn in a much bigger game." Jessica's hand trembled as she pulled her weapon from its holster, the weight of the situation pressing down on her. Wild Bill didn't flinch. In fact, he seemed almost entertained, as if he'd anticipated this moment for years. "I don't know what kind of trap you think you're pulling, Matthews," she said, her voice firm. "But it's over. We've found you." His smirk widened, his cold eyes never leaving hers. "You found me, yes," he said, his tone chilling. "But you still don't understand the game you're playing." Before she could respond, he turned abruptly and vanished into the shadows. Her instinct screamed at her to chase him, but she hesitated for only a fraction of a second. It was enough. Wild Bill had already slipped away, lost in a labyrinth of dark alleyways, just as elusive as the shadows he commanded. "Detective Hayes, what do we do?" one of her agents called, his voice filled with panic. "Get a perimeter set up now," she commanded. "He won't be far. He wants us to follow him." But as she moved deeper into the darkness, Hayes began to realize something far more unsettling. Wild Bill had been expecting her. He knew she was coming, knew her every move before she made it. How? Had he been watching her this whole time? The chase through the woods was chaotic. Hayes and her team moved cautiously through the trees, but the place felt like a maze. Every step they took seemed to echo in the silence, like they were walking right into Wild Bill's trap. Suddenly, one of the agents shouted, "He's gone! There's no trace of him." They stopped in their tracks, scanning the area. A deep sense of unease settled over them. There were no footprints in the mud, no sign of disturbance. It was as if Wild Bill had simply vanished into thin air. "This isn't right," Jessica muttered, looking at the others. "He's toying with us." Hours later, they regrouped at a nearby station, the investigation at a standstill. But Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something crucial. Every lead they had followed had been a dead end. The disappearance of Wild Bill Matthews wasn't a random escape. It was deliberate, calculated. She reviewed the evidence again, her mind racing. There had to be something they were overlooking. And then it hit her. A small detail in one of the surveillance tapes from the prison. The way a shadow moved in the background just before the guards noticed that Wild Bill's cell was empty. A guard had passed by the cell, his eyes glazed over, as if distracted by something. Was it possible? Was someone on the inside helping him escape? Could there have been a conspiracy to free Matthews? Her thoughts were interrupted by a call. It was an unfamiliar number, but she answered quickly. "Detective Hayes?" The voice on the other end was quiet, almost fearful. "I know who helped him escape." Jessica's heart raced. Who is this? They're still inside the system. They're playing both sides. The line went dead before she could get another word in. Her pulse thumped in her ears. Who had just called? And why was the voice so cryptic? Jessica knew she was close. Too close. Someone within the prison system had to be involved in Matthew's disappearance. But who? She couldn't trust anyone. Not even the officers she had worked with for years. She began to dig into the prison staff, pulling up records of every officer who had worked the night shift around the time of Matthew's escape. As she sifted through the paperwork, one name kept appearing. Greg Holt, the guard who had first discovered Matthews was missing. Greg had a spotless record. No history of corruption, no complaints. But something about him didn't sit right with Jessica. She had a nagging feeling that he was more involved than he let on. It was time to confront him. She arrived at his apartment, her heart pounding. The lights were off, and the place seemed eerily quiet. As she approached the door, she noticed something strange. Scratches on the doorframe. Had someone tried to force their way in? Or out? Her hand went to her gun. But before she could knock, the door creaked open on its own. "Greg," she called, stepping inside. The place was in disarray. Furniture overturned, books scattered across the floor, and paper strewn everywhere. The apartment had been ransacked. And then she saw it. On the table, a set of prison keys. The same keys that would unlock the doors to Wild Bill Matthews' cell. Greg. Holt had been helping him all along. As Jessica continued to piece together the evidence, the truth became clearer. Holt wasn't the only one involved. A web of corruption and deceit spread throughout the entire prison system. Officers had been bribed. Some had been blackmailed. And at the center of it all was Wild Bill Matthews. He had orchestrated his own escape, using his network of loyal followers both inside and outside the prison. But the most chilling revelation came when Jessica uncovered a series of encrypted messages between Matthews and a high-ranking government official. The messages revealed that Wild Bill had been plotting his escape for years, pulling strings from within the prison. But it was only when he had secured a deal with someone on the outside, someone in a position of power, that his plan truly began to take shape. The conspiracy ran deeper than she had ever imagined. Matthews was not just a criminal. He was a mastermind, a player in a much larger game. As the pieces fell into place, Jessica knew she was running out of time. Wild Bill Matthews was no longer a man on the run. He was a threat with unimaginable resources. His disappearance had sparked a chain reaction, one that threatened to expose a vast network of corruption at the highest levels. Jessica was alone now, no one to trust. She had to stop him before he disappeared again. But as she prepared for the final confrontation, she received a chilling text message. "You've been chasing shadows, detective. It's too late. The game is already over." Jessica's phone slipped from her hand, clattering to the floor as she stared at the message. Wild Bill Matthews was still watching her, and he was more dangerous than ever, with the conspiracy running deeper than she could ever imagine. The lines between right and wrong had blurred. Would she be able to stop him, or had the game already been won? The final confrontation was set in the heart of a forgotten industrial district, a place where shadows clung to every corner. Jessica Hayes stood in the middle of the abandoned warehouse, her gun steady in her hands. The oppressive silence around her felt like a weight pressing down on her chest. She was no longer just a detective. She was the last line of defense between the chaos Wild Bill Matthews sought to unleash and the fragile justice she had sworn to protect. "Don't do it, Jessica," a voice echoed from the darkness, cutting through the tension. It was him, Wild Bill Matthews, his silhouette barely visible in the dim light. His face remained hidden in the shadows, but his presence, every inch of him, radiated power. Jessica's heart pounded in her chest, her fingers tightening on the trigger, but she hesitated. She had to know the truth. There was no more room for games. "You think you're the hero here?" Bill's voice was cold, mocking. "This isn't a story of justice. It's the story of survival. And you, detective, you're just another casualty." "Why?" she demanded, her voice shaking with frustration and resolve. "Why this? Why all the years of bloodshed, the manipulation?" He laughed, the sound dark and menacing. "You're asking the wrong question, Jessica. The real question is, why haven't you figured it out yet? You've been chasing ghosts. The system? It's built to fail. I'm just here to make sure it does." Jessica's mind reeled. She had spent months digging into Wild Bill's past, his escape, his network. But what he was saying, what he was implying, it shook her to the core. Had she been played this entire time? Was Wild Bill just a cog in a much larger machine? Without warning, the warehouse door slammed open and armed men stormed in. Some of them wore prison guard uniforms. Others were dressed in civilian clothes. But they were all part of the same group. They weren't just working with Wild Bill. They were part of the very system that had protected him all these years. Jessica's world spun. She was outnumbered, trapped. Her options dwindled. The conspiracy that Wild Bill had been hinting at, the one she feared, was real. This wasn't just about a man escaping prison. It was about power, corruption, and a network too vast to dismantle. Wild Bill stepped closer, his grin widening. "You're not the one in control, detective. You never were." With a cold, swift motion, he turned to leave, his men following suit, leaving Jessica standing alone. She wanted to move, to fight back, but something inside her told her that this was just the beginning. The game had changed. Wild Bill had vanished again. Only this time, there would be no chasing shadows. There was something far darker at play, and it was only just starting to surface. As the lights flickered and the sound of footsteps echoed in the distance, Jessica knew one thing. The truth would remain hidden, buried beneath layers of lies and deceit, for as long as they allowed it to be. The secrets of Wild Bill Matthews' escape, and the people who helped him remain unsolved. But rest assured, the investigation isn't over. The game continues, and the truth is just waiting to be uncovered. Thank you for following this journey with Crime's Court. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for the next chilling story. Because in the world of crime, nothing is ever truly over.